Hi, welcome back. I'm Katie Kempner, and you are here at Advertising Week Europe. Here's another episode of Perspectives Live, where I talk to successful working women balancing busy lives, and my next guest is a terrific example of that. Kathleen Saxton joins us. She's the founder of the Lighthouse Company. Welcome.
Thank you.
So now tell me how you're involved with Advertising Week.
So I run a headhunting company in London and New York called the Lighthouse Company, and we specialise in finding leadership talent around the world. So going to Advertising Week in New York, as I have done for the last 5 years or so, has been a really good place for me to have a look at the talent that's coming up and the leaders within the different businesses, from creative to media and right across the space. So I was going as a delegate for the last 3 years, but then 2 years ago, Matt Schechner, who owns the property of Advertising Week, asked if we'd like to speak about talent actually on a platform. So for the last couple of years, I've been speaking as part of Advertising Week. And about 18 months ago, we came off stage for the first time, and I said to Matt, you know what, you should be doing this in Europe. There's a definite need for something as broad as Advertising Week, as inspiring as Advertising Week, to come to the European country. London seemed to be quite a good place to start. And it was very much from the gem of an idea there. We've literally worked on it together since then. So we didn't know each other before, but we formed an incredible bond. My company, his company, all of our teams have really integrated together. And it's been a real sense of curating something that we thought people would want to come to.
Matt is a very special guy.
He's definitely very persuasive.
And extraordinarily persuasive. So tell me a little bit about your career.
So originally I wanted to be a dentist, hilariously. I wasn't quite bright enough to be a dentist, but I had the opportunity very, very early on to work for someone who's actually speaking at Advertising Week, a guy called Theo Paphitis, who's actually a dragon in London, Dragon's Den dragon. And he was a really inspirational entrepreneur, and he was very much into communications business, that kind of stuff. And it really began to make me think about the fact that I'd like to work within a business that was entrepreneurial and indeed was all about communication. And after stints with him, I then joined a television company. I worked in sales for them for several years. Then I joined Sky Television. I then went to a radio business called Capital Radio, and then I went and jumped the fence, and I went to PhD, which obviously is an agency now globally, worldwide, but it was founded in London. And I worked with the three founders and a fantastic woman called Tess Alps, a very inspiring woman. And really, I guess I learnt my trade there. I got on the board of the company there, and really my whole role there was kind of looking after people and communications and new business. So always been in a selling role of some description. I then jumped the fence again after about 4.5 years to Saatchi & Saatchi, and in those days it was very much a case that if you worked on the media side of the business, it was quite hard to move to the creative side. I think in those days, I'm getting on a bit now, the creative agency side saw the media side as a slightly lesser kind of cousin. However, I managed it. I'm very tenacious, always have been. And I worked at Saatchi on the board there for several years as well and had a fantastic time. But I think I always was someone who is a natural networker. I really love connecting with people. I'm very fascinated by humans and human conditions. And I think it was only a matter of time, really, that headhunting would come to the fore. And I was asked to join a firm at the time just as a consultant, and a fantastic mentor of mine, a woman called Fru Hazlitt, who now runs ITV here, said to me, Kathleen, don't go and join as a consultant. If you're ever going to do it, then set it up for yourself. So I set up a company with some other amazing headhunters that's now called Grace Blue. It's a very successful headhunting firm. And I was with them for around 3 years, and I really learned the thing I'll do the rest of my days. I think I absolutely love what I do. And I think there are two different types of headhunters. There are those who I think do it for a job, and there are those that feel that it's a complete sort of vocation for them. Mm-hmm. And I think those that have that can be very, very skillful at what they do, and Grace Blue definitely taught me that I could be that. But after about 3 years, I think I definitely, with digital explosion and the economy melting down, I really felt there was a really fresh way of doing it. So I sold my shareholding in that business back to the original founders as well, and I left and set up the Lighthouse Company. So we're about 3.5 years old as a business, and I wouldn't change a thing.
I'm exhausted just listening to that great trajectory. So during all this time of this great career and making all these really smart choices, I know that you've also had a very busy personal life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I have two gorgeous children, Ned and Nancy, who are now 16 and 14. And I've been very blessed, actually. They're absolutely wonderful children. So far, we haven't had too many problems, but I'm braced and ready. They're reaching their middle teenage years.
5 teenagers.
Exactly. No. So we'll see. But and during that time, so I was actually had my children with my school sweeps sweetheart, which was very, very, very wonderful. He's a wonderful man. But about 10 years ago, we separated, and he was always at home. He's been a house husband ever since the children were born, and he's done an incredible job. And I think I credit lots of my children's temperament to the fact he's a very calm, laid-back man. But what it has meant is that I've really had to forge forward in my career. He's chosen to be at home, and actually the balance works really, really well. So I have the children, we literally share the children. So I have them from a sort of Friday lunchtime through to Monday morning. I take them to school, and then he has them the rest of the time during the week. So it allows him to do what he needs to do. It allows me to do what I need to do in my professional life. There's lots of entertaining and client work I have to do. So naturally I have to be out quite a lot of the time in the evenings, but we can balance it very well. And I think that I really do empathise with the whole female choices that we have to make. And you know, when people ask me, I always say, don't hold me up as someone who's typical, because I think my work and home life is slightly different to most because Adrian, you know, is at home. But I think there are definite choices that we have to make as women that actually men don't have to. And rather us skirt around the whole discussion, I think it has to be out there front and centre that you often, if you can have the choice in your life to think strategically about when you have your children, you should try and cast your mind to that if you can. But life is life and nature is nature. But I think that there are some realities around whether you can get to a certain level in your career before you have your children, or you have your children very early and then forge ahead in your career. What we find in the studies that we undertake at Lighthouse are that often women just get to their first big management position, probably early 30s. The stats are around 31 for a man, 34 for a woman. And in our day and age, people tend to having children older, so women tend to having their children in her early 30s. And often you can just take yourself out of your career just at that moment when you're breaking into leadership positions. And that's often why we lose women at that level. So for every time I'm asked to find a chief executive, a commercial director, SVP of something, often we're told, as I'm putting my hand on the door, having taken the brief from my client, I call it the kind of Columbo moment. So the client will say to me, just one more thing, I know it's slightly illegal, but could it be a woman? Could you find me a woman to do this role? So proactively being asked, would love to represent more and more women, but sometimes the reality is you've taken yourself out of the business for 1 or 2 or 3 years to have your children, which is absolutely how it should be, but unfortunately that does impact what happens at that level and that age and stage. People come back and have a fabulous career following it, but there is definitely a moment in time where we miss and we lose a section of women that sometimes never return.
Well, that's really what I'm interested in, is there a way to be able to do all of that? Because, and as a headhunter, I mean, you're in a really unique position to see how people have set that up, and you've come up with a situation that works terrifically for you. Yeah. Everybody has different women that have been very successful, have all found different paths for themselves.
And I think it's a really personal choice. I don't think any of us can dictate or say that we found the right way. I think you have to find a way that really works for you. What I would say though is I think in the past, I think corporations have felt that if they offer some flexible working or that you can leave a little bit early, that should be enough. And I just don't think that is enough. I think you have to really think about what women do need in the workplace. And some studies we've also done show that particularly at senior levels for women are more likely to suffer with stress and adrenal issues because of the adrenaline that they need to kind of really push themselves forward, whereas men will often use testosterone, which can actually work in their favour in a leadership position. So it's quite interesting, the chemical difference in male and females. What I think you will also find is that women will tend to suffer a bit more with mental health and mental sort of strength when they're under stress, where men actually will often go and drink or take drugs. So there's definitely an addiction end for men that's been proven, and there's more of a stress and emotional health issue with women. So I think we have to support our women. If there has to be an in-house doctor, there has to be maybe nanny banks. If you're suddenly having to go to work and your child's got chicken pox and you have to take that child out of nursery for maybe four weeks or 3 weeks for a while, very difficult to cover that if you're in a senior position. So businesses like Procter & Gamble, for example, have been really, really pioneering in finding qualified banks of nannies where you can literally ring in the morning and somebody can be sent to your home who's fully qualified, been fully checked, just to hold the fort while you have to go and do that important board meeting or investment meeting or whatever it may be. So I think there are much more creative ways to support women, but I think businesses have to really want to find them and really ask the questions of what would really help, rather than just having a blanket kind of you can leave at 5 doesn't really help anybody.
Well, I could talk to you all day. I mean, we'll have to talk more later, but I want to just end now with one final thing, which is if you could give advice to the people that you're, headhunting, or people here, women here today, today,
Yeah.
what is the one thing that you would tell them in their career?
The one thing I would say is you must remain authentic at all times. You cannot please everybody. I think as women we have a real sense of sometimes lack of confidence or imposter syndrome where we think that we can't be the person that we're meant to be. And I think if you can be authentic and stay true to who you are and be very honest about your wants and needs in business as well as what you can offer, that'll take you a lot further than you think.
Thank you. That's great advice. Great to meet you.
You
Thank
too.
you, Kathleen.
Pleasure.
And thank you. Please check it back again later. We'll have plenty more on perspectives.